This is a video on simplifying exponents when you have negative exponents. So we're going to do some multiplication and some division or like fraction problems with these. So when I have a negative exponent, all that means is I'm going to kind of flip the variable to the opposite part of the fraction. Now in these ones there's obviously no fraction, right? So I'm going to put it over 1 and put this over 1 because dividing something by 1 is itself. So when I have a negative exponent, so that's right here, this negative 3 is only touching the r. It's not touching the 4, right? It's directly touching the r. So what I'm going to do is you're going to flip the r to the negative 3. You're going to put it on the bottom now. And instead of making it a negative 3, the flipping it makes it become a positive 3. So now it's not on the top anymore. I moved it to the bottom. And I make it a positive exponent by moving it. So now I have a division problem basically. So I'm going to put these together. Okay, so I'm going to have 4 times 2, which gives me an 8. And I have an r squared on top. And I have an r to the third on the bottom. So now I'm just going to separate these again like it's a regular division problem. So I kind of draw a line here. I have 8 over 1. Can't really do anything about that, but then I have r squared over r to the third. So 2 ways to approach this if you want to write out the r values. Or if you just want to think where are there more on the top or the bottom. So I'm going to cross those out. I have 1 remaining on the bottom. That is very important, that it's on the bottom. So my number's 8 over 1, that stays the same. And then I have 1 over r on the bottom. So again, I just merge those together, stick them together. I have an h over r is my final answer. So with a negative exponent, I'm going to flip-flop it from wherever it is. So you might need to make a fraction if there isn't one. We move this to the bottom, and that makes it a positive exponent now. That's some pretty bad handwriting. But it makes it a positive exponent by moving it to the bottom. So let's look at another example. Okay, this one we have a couple more negatives going on and a couple of different variables. So what we're going to do is I'm going to write this over 1 and this over 1. Okay, so I'm going to deal with the negative exponents. I'm going to end up moving this y to the negative 3. I'm going to move it to the bottom. And moving it makes it a positive exponent now. So now it's not on the top, I just moved it to the bottom and made it a y to the positive 3. In our other fraction, I have x to the negative 1. It's only touching at x, so I'm going to move x to the positive 1 on the bottom and get rid of that on the top. Okay, so now I'm just going to merge my stuff together so it's a little easier to start simplifying it. So I have 2 times 2 on the top gives me a 4. I have an x to the third, y to the third, and on the bottom it's x to the first, y to the third. I always like to have them in alphabetical order on the top and bottom so it's easier to stay in line. So now I'm going to divide these up. This, I have 3 different parts. Okay, so I have 4 over a 1, I'm just going to leave that there. And I have an x to the third over an x to the first power. If I deal with that first, there are how many more? Where are there more on the top? Yes. How many more on the top? There's 2 more. So I'm going to end up having x to the second on the top remaining. Right, if you want to write out the x variables, instead, if you like that approach, go ahead and do that. Then I have y to the third over y to the third. Alright, where are there more? The top or the bottom? Well, they have the same number. So when they have the same number, remember, if it's the same on the top and bottom, that can cross out, and this just becomes a 1. So now, what I have left, I'm going to combine everything together from this stuff, merge it all together. Basically, I just have a 4x squared. If you're dividing by 1, you don't have to write that because it doesn't change anything. Okay, so with this exponent, we made them into fractions first and then flip-flopped it if it was a negative. Okay, we're going to look at some in a fraction already and see what we do with that. So we already have a fraction, 3m to the negative 4th divided by m to the third. So I have m to the negative 4, that's my negative exponent, it's only touching the m. So I'm going to flip that to the bottom. I'm going to keep everything else where it is. I'm just going to rewrite another m to the positive 4 on the bottom. Right, positive is because I flipped it, and now it's not there on the top anymore. But the 3 and the m to the third stay where they are. So what I have is 3 over, if I combine m to the third times m to the fourth, if I write all those out, 2, 3, and then I have 4 more, that gives me a total of m to the 7th power. Okay? So I only flip the thing that has the negative. Do not move anything else. That's the answer for that problem. One more example, I believe. So I have a lot of things going on first. So what I'm going to do, instead of separating them all, I'm going to deal with my negative things first. So I'm going to look, where are my negative exponents? Y to the negative 4th, y to the negative 3, and z to the negative 3. So I'm going to flip-flop all of those to the opposite spot of where they should be. So let's start here. I'm going to move this y to the negative 4th. I'm going to move that down here. Now it's y to the positive 4. And now it's not here anymore. I'm going to move this z to the negative 3rd. It's going to become z to the positive 3rd. Right, because I'm moving it to the bottom. That gets rid of the negative. So that's not there anymore. Now I need to move this thing up to the top. Y to the positive 3rd. And now it's not here anymore. So let's simplify what's remaining. On the top I have a 2x to the 4th. I didn't touch that at all. Also on the top now is this y to the 3rd. On the bottom I have a 3x squared, didn't touch that. And again in alphabetical order, next would become y to the 4th, this one right here. And then I have z to the 4th and z to the 3rd, which together makes z to the 7th power, if you can do that. All that's on the bottom. Okay, so now is when we're going to break it down into each individual part. Alright, so I have 2 over 3. Again, if I divide that, it's going to give me a decimal that I can't simplify anymore, so leave it as that. Then I have x to the 4th over x squared. Where are there more? The top or bottom? There's more on the top. How many more? 2 more. So that becomes x squared on the top of a fraction. Alright, next we have our y's. We have y to the 3rd over y to the 4th. Alright, I'm going to write these ones out. Y times y times y over 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. I'm going to cross them out. There's 1 remaining on the bottom. So I have a 1 on the top and a y on the bottom. Last I have a z, are my z's. I have 1 over z to the 7th. Since there's no z's on the top, I can't do anything with that. I'm just going to keep it and copy it down here. So last but not least, we're going to combine all of these things together, merge them together into one big fraction. Everything on the top stays on the top, everything on the bottom stays on the bottom. So I have a 2x squared. Remember, times 1 doesn't do anything, so that's basically all. 3, this times 1 doesn't really do anything. I have a y, and I have a z to the 7th. So first thing you should do, if you have negative exponents in your problem, you need to move those to the opposite side, opposite top or bottom. Okay? Only move the things that have a negative with them. Do not move anything else. Okay? Then you're going to simplify it as if it was a regular problem without any negative exponents. So make sure you ask questions about negative exponents, as these can be a little tricky.